Right, good afternoon. Can't tell you how happy I am to be able to interact with everybody face to face. I think I can speak for Harish and Navaneethan here that take that pandemic. Let's start with that. All right, so why are we here today? Obviously, we're here to talk about the future of work. So what do we know? The future of work is connected, it's flexible, it's hyper-personalized, most importantly, it's decentralized. So that's great for employers because we as employers have access to new and hitherto untapped talent pools. And for employees, the world's your oyster. But let's not for a moment forget that ultimately, we are in business for our customers, and our customers are trusting us with our data and their IP. So it's up to us to find a way to make it all happen. How do we make these new ecosystems, the ecosystems we're talking about, how do we make them work? How do we make them work for our customers? How do we make them work for us as businesses? How do we make them work for our employees? So we're going to spend the next 20, 30 minutes with two bona fide experts in the field. We're going to break this all down and talk about how we secure a connected workspace, a connected workforce. Audience, please ask a lot of questions. I'll keep reaching out to you periodically to ask questions. So I'm going to start off by asking Navaneethan because he joined from Bangalore. One of the challenges, Navaneethan, with a distributed and connected workforce is that we have absolutely no control over how our assets are being used during work hours and outside of work hours. So for both of you, but Navaneethan to answer, start off, of course, does that keep you up at night?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Awesome, great, Amar. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a wonderful, afternoon in Chennai. Really, I'm missing due to a couple of other travel plan and other things. So glad to meet and have a lot of takeaway from everyone. It is awesome the topic in terms of securing connected worlds, right? It's the last 2 years. Everyone going through the this pandemic, and during pandemic, every CIO is having a lot of challenges in terms of how to resume the operation is the first and foremost the priority. Second one is how to resume in secure way, right? That's what it is the bigger challenges. So if you take 15 years back, 10 to 15 years back, we had a lot of challenges in terms of we had ODC concept, right? If you see the most of the service organizations, you can see there's a separate ODC where we have a dedicated network and dedicated environment and dedicated if you have any payment card industries where it's a secure environment. Now what is if you see that it is absolutely diluted, right? From the end to end, if you see, really we cannot have a dedicated environment. Really, we are not sure the employee is working from beach or the employee is working from anywhere on the road or maybe anywhere in the remote locations. Moreover, just we have seen most of the people just they have gone to their hometown and then village because ultimately, if you have a great internet, it's more than enough to connect and establish and do the work. So that's why really from the people standpoint, a lot of convenience where we got it, they got spend time to the work with their dears and the close circles. But from security standpoint, from CIO and then CISOs, we have a lot of challenges in terms of protecting not only organization, protecting the home environment also, because that is a bigger challenges, right? If you do the ward driving, if you are in the apartment where I can see 100 SSID, right, in terms of Wi-Fi. If you do a little bit of ward driving, I can capture all the SSID. The password remain, it may be your home number or mobile number, or it's maybe the car number. So that standpoint, really the CIO, CISO roles and responsibility is absolutely increased from connecting, protecting not only the organizations, absolutely on the home network also.
All right.
So how to, yeah.
Now, that's obviously the way your roles have evolved. They're very different from what they were even 2 years ago, right? So the dynamics are completely different. But handing over to Harish for a minute, Harish. So no control over your assets. How do you deal with that?
So like as we are talking about this topic, right? What keeps us at night, awake at night, basically. So the number of managed and unmanaged devices, I think earlier were the days when you had a fixed desktop, you had a company laptop, but nowadays the whole, with the pandemic, we learned about BYOD, right? Bring your own device. I think me and Amber were just having a good discussion about it. So when the employees want to bring their own device, right? Their device could be because of the larger, higher configurations, or something they are more used to, rather than managing two devices. They want to use a single device, their home device, and work on it. So I think it's pretty important to bring in the security aspect of it across those perimeters as well. So I think as Navaneethan was talking about it, right? So there are some key aspects of security which we want to bring in with those BYOD as well, which is very much applicable. So I think that's the landscape what the industry would see with the future of workspace, right? That bring your own device, the people, the employees going to access from managed and unmanaged devices, you won't be able to control it. So the control, what we have to bring is from a security perspective, and that's what, the CISOs are the ones who would be awake at night versus anyone else to see that how they bring in that security aspect of it. And there are solutions to it. It's not that, with this change, I think with the pandemic, we have seen how organizations have changed the working model. So security has even played an equal role, or it has grown to the next set of levels as well. So right nowadays we have so much of around, the DLPs or the SASE or the Zero Trust Network, what we all talk about, your data classifications. So there are policies which will help companies apply that security posture to it. And most importantly, the access control, right? I mean, who has access to what sort of data? So I think with those kind of solutions, I'm very much sure that,
logical segmentation of data, smart use of devices, that also allows, I guess, allows businesses to access that wider talent pool and truly leverage the gig workforce. I think that's important. There's a very fine line between privacy, employee privacy, and reasonable output monitoring for productivity and billing. I think Haritha talked about that a couple of panels ago. Is semi-intrusive tech or intrusive tech the only way forward?
Well, I would say, yeah, that's the way technology is growing. Everybody wants to apply in every part of it. The HR wants to apply those AI, ML in their set of domains. So likewise, I think intrusive tech is going to be the way forward, right? And I think it's important for employees to also take a step back and think about it. Just thinking from an employee's area, they also got to think from an employer's perspective. Right? I think that's the mindset which will help employees to take a step back and think about what is it from a customer centric, what is from an employer centric. So that's going to help in identifying those policies. But I think that's going to be the way forward, because I think it's with the whole AI and ML, what we have seen is automation has changed the entire landscape, what we used to do before. And if we don't apply that same set of automation and ML in what we do day to day, I think it's like a waste of technology what it would be.
Yeah, so we need to eat our own dog food, right? If we're selling automation and AI and ML to our customers, we should be able to use it to deliver a superior employee experience. Okay, no, I couldn't agree with you more. Navaneethan, we hear so much about the Zero Trust Network, right? Could you start off with a very quick layman's definition of what that means? Then we'll talk a little bit about how we could leverage that effectively.
Awesome, Amar. It's a two-way, right? I mean, if you see this current the environment, as I have mentioned, like most of the environments earlier, we have a lot of micro-segmentations in terms just before getting the data centers. There's a man trap, there is a physical security, there is a logical security, there is a fingerprint. It's like a multiple layer just where you have to get into your data center. That's a setup, we had it. But now it is not like that, right? It is all SaaS based. It's like just one click where you will get just all the applications, just whatever you wanted to plug in. That's what most of the maybe the top 100 fintech or the top 100 startups, if you see, it's like all the the organizations gone beyond by using the respective the technologies. So technology play a very significant role. But here there's some major things is like of course SaaS provider also have access to that, right? Similarly, multiple service provider, multiple vendor have access to our data. So here this zero trust play a very significant role in terms of course, I trust it, but even though if you're the CEO and then CTO, I verify and then I allow you. I don't say if it is a white skin, that's what used to happen, right? If you take a couple of organizations, if you come with a blazer and then white skin, just by default security salute and then you allow that. So based on your body language, that you will get an entry into the respective area. It's not that way. Here, the zero trust absolutely where we are working on the micro-segment model in terms of the architecture, in terms of the access control. So before getting into the any environment, even though you were the CEO, CTO, or the respective CXO board, really the people have to verify and then getting into that. Because that's a major, bigger challenges in the current stuff, like absolutely on the supply chain attack. if you want to provide service to any vendor, or if you want to be any the startup or any organization, it's all the software is not produced by you, right? There are multiple stacks. It's provided by the the third party. So those supply chain also which needs to be protected by our zero trust model.
So to try and summarize, one of the key components of zero trust network architecture is to provide the right access to the right person, right tools, right time. Would you agree, Harish?
Yeah, perfectly, definitely. I think the whole zero trust, like zero trust is basically a framework, right? I think we apply it in different areas. So in the zero trust network, right, I think it's all about, as you rightly said, the right access to the right set of people. I think with the changing landscape of, public cloud, multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, I mean, it's so many different platforms, right? Your certain set of applications are hosted in the public cloud, while your certain set of applications are on-prem, right? Certain set of applications would be in a file share model as well. So how do you give those specific direct access versus, like having a VPN where, like I was just like Amar, we were having that same sort of interaction that with those VPN days, you used to get access into a company's network and then you could access multiple applications, right? But nowadays with, with a limited workforce and organized workforce, the entire zero trust network architecture helps you define that specific access to a specific module. So if Navaneethan comes from a marketing team, why would he need access to a HR module or a financial module, right? So how do you enable those straight from your employee's laptop straight into that application? I think that's what the whole zero trust network is all about, architecture is about, and the role-based access, right? Again, so I keep talking about this role-based, but it's so important that we define policies to give access to a specific of what you need, right? You just can't have the root access, what we used to talk about, right? In our administrator days, like, okay, hey, he has a administrative access or root access to everything. Those are the past, and now that, you have to see that you give a control access to what he's going to execute on or what he needs access to. So I think that's where the whole zero trust network architecture helps.
I think you make a very valid point. So not everybody has access to everything fundamentally, and we've got to change the way we think. How do we do that seamlessly for the employees in the era of employee experience, where that's the differentiator? People join companies because they are promised a better experience. So how do we make that experience seamless? Yeah, you bring your own device, you apply a zero trust framework to that, but how do you make it seamless for the employee?
I think this is a, like, I'll add my view to it, and definitely Navaneethan can add to it. So I think it's very important that we create right set of roles, rules, policies when we go and shape up our organization. I think probably it's time for organization to take a seat back and then think about, right, what set of policies I need to define, right? What kind of a user experience I have, like, again, the same sort of departments, right? What would he have access to? Like the gig workforce, as you were talking about, what kind of a model you need for the gig workforce? Like during the HR days, right? In the past, it used to be a more of a different set of conversation, what versus we see now.
Lots of HR people in the house, I'm telling you.
No, but I was talking to someone this morning as well, that the whole model of HR, right, human resource, how they execute, how they create this set of workforce and profiles is what dependent on them and how they build around it. So I think that's going to set the set of initial phases to take it forward on the gig workforce or any of it.
I think that's a very valid observation, Harish, and I think Navaneethan alluded to that as well. If we want to do things differently, we've got to change our building blocks, right? Our frameworks, which is essentially our policy frameworks. So the metaverse is knocking on our doors. So the people are already talking about direct to avatar and not just direct to consumer or direct to employee, talking about direct to avatar. So does this add another dimension to the challenges you guys face from an InfoSec standpoint?
So from a metaverse, like I was, the whole virtual reality, the whole virtual reality and the frame around it. I think metaverse definitely is bringing a lot different experience for the users and in the way technology is being used. So yes, it definitely adds a layer of what you need to secure around the metaverse, kind of the way, again, it's not just from the marketing or the clothing set of areas. We have seen metaverse being applied in set of offices and conferences everywhere. So some of the security basics still apply to it, But I think the way we have matured in the security landscape in the last 20 years, I think we got to use all of that and just see that, how do we go and apply it and mature in it. I think likes of metaverse, even Amar, even on the blockchain side of it, right? I think those smart contracts or the tokens, how do you go ahead and see that the right set of users are experiencing it? I think it's all around there, and with the set of ANI ML we have matured to, I mean, there are organizations who have already kickstarted that and, securing up the technologies.
So Navaneethan, back to you, because Harish talked about the blockchain, right? The blockchain is either the most exciting or the most scary part about the future of work, depending on who you're talking to. So as an organization, do you have a plan for the blockchain and to secure your business in the era of the blockchain?
Yeah, absolutely, Amar. So if you see this, the current infrastructure, just what we have in terms of, as I rightly mentioned, zero trust architecture, or maybe in terms of bringing the right access control, or maybe bringing the right culture into the organizations play very significant role. So nowadays, if you see in terms of where we have a huge in terms of demand and on which of the skills you talk, like the every people will have a 2 to 3 offers. So now the culture is coming to the pictures, like you should be humble enough, as a hiring manager, you should be humble enough to the candidate, the pleasant way of experience where we should keep. In terms of asking question also, you should know like how do we articulate and then how to get things done, right? That's where it is going on. See, most of the organizations, it's coming to the pictures from the security standpoint, really just we cannot enforce most of the control, right? It's very, very basically, if you talk where you have a restricted internet, the people rejected the offer. Most of my friends, they are working as a CIO, and then see the first and foremost things, can I access Facebook? Can I access Twitter? Or if you have restriction of such and types, really it's very difficult for me to run my work-life balance and all the things. So coming back to the blockchain, of course, where the most of the government sectors just they are playing very significant role, right? I mean, in terms of except the fintech as well as the Bitcoin, what we do it. See, it's two-way, right? One is a technology where we have a lot of simplifications, as well as from end user standpoint, we have a lot of benefit from immutability. So once a transaction is done, it is done. You cannot do any other because from fraud standpoint, where we have a lot of possibilities, a lot of benefits where we get it from the blockchains. When most of the industries where we opted, of course, from fintech standpoint also where we have a lot of R&D, where how we can pitch it in terms of the transaction, which happening between the the two party, it is secure enough and it is not reversible. It is absolutely the immutability standpoint. But from the Bitcoin standpoint, of course, where the government is trying to have a control, right? In terms of the block money conversion is most of the things. I mean, before doing the KOC, if you take a Bitcoin, most of the block money converted into the white money through this, most of the Bitcoins, right? In terms of really, we are not sure where we are buying, how you are buying, how the money is floating from end to end in terms of the prices going up or the dropping down in the different way. So that's why the fintech standpoint, we have a little bit challenges. But apart from that, from application standpoint, we already started to use in the extreme way wherever we have immutability at this list of the scanning standpoint.
All right. So I'm going to paint this scenario for you, right? You want to leverage the gig workforce, the gig economy. So you have a bunch of people that are working in your metaverse. You have, and they're all being paid using smart contracts. They're all bringing their own devices, so you've imaged them separately. So people are talking about this in roundabout fashions, right? And people are doing this piecemeal. Company A is saying, okay, we have a metaverse that we use for a virtual onboarding session. But isn't everyone fundamentally talking about a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization? And can we really do that in today's day and age? It sounds great, smart contracts, all devices, no geographical boundaries, but are we ready for that?
So to share my view with those, DAOs, metaverse, I think it's a specific set of industry where you would see those being adapted, and I think that's where also the secure workforce or the balance has to be applied. But if you talk about the larger landscape of it, Amar, I mean, like the marketing, the media, the social channels, right? They are quite early to adapt the sort of the branding kind of an area, right? They are early adapters of DAOs or metaverse, right? But can we see that same sort of experience across the industries? I would say no, right? It's again the maturity which has to come into model. I mean, DAOs and metaverse, they are very strong in terms of very specific segments of industry where we have seen that growth as well, right? And they are early adapters, but not that I would say that it paints the same picture to everyone. And I think bringing up like example, the BYOD, the smart contracts, right? The gig workforce, this all gets connected when we talk about DAOs or the metaverse domain, right? But if we apply the same thing to the BFSI, the banking, insurance, or the industry services, can we apply something similar? I would say no. It's still got to apply that maturity, and then you will go be adapted.
Absolutely. In the area of, so we've talked about protecting data, customer data. How do we protect? So I think it goes back to what we talked about, right? About the same rules that we apply for our clients should also deliver a superior employee experience. So employee privacy, employee data. So this entire data concept. So we talk about data lakes for customers. So do you see, or would you say it ought to be a best practice to apply the same data lake framework to how we deal with our internal organizations?
I would say yes, because the end of the day, when we talk about customers' data, right, what we are trying to do with that is like build a data lake, get some insights out of it. So I think it applies same for every organization as well themselves, right? That, okay, what do we do with our employees' data? I think when you talk about that intrusive technology, right, that's all about collecting data and actually, building up a model to it, right? That, okay, how do my employees behave when they come to office? How do my employees behave when they work from home? I think that's all about data collection, right? And same thing on the data privacy. I mean, employees' data, right? Who are a regular employee, a contractor employees, right? A gig workforce who just work for a few hours and then probably they are gone. So how do you go ahead and keep that data across and build some kind of a classification to it? Like you have your own set of IPs as well. So building up that data classification to see that, okay, hey, what's important, what's not important, what's critical, what's not critical. Again, are the set of policies which
I think the policy framework is at the heart of it all, right? To enable the future of work.
Yes.
So I think this is a good time when we probably take a few questions from the audience, and then we'll wrap. I'll open the floor for questions to the audience. Any questions? I think there's someone up front who has a question.
So the zero trust architecture with the hybrid model, again coming from a banking background, how far do we stretch that in the infrastructure or setup of people working from home?
So, I mean, for the zero trust architecture, right? I mean, people working from home, as an example, it's all about you, like the network that comes the first, right? Because it's going to be, you're going to be accessing the network to go ahead and connect. And again, you're going to be using set of, you said working from home, but people are working from cafeterias and, hotel places everywhere. So that zero trust network comes as a very first frame of it, right? That how do you see that a network from your device to what you're going to connect to plays a key role. That, again, it's based on the users. Let's say what kind of a user you are. If you're accessing a SaaS module, you can straight away connect from your laptop, managed or unmanaged device whatsoever into that area. So I think the basis of a zero trust architecture starts from the network first, right? And then goes into the access management. Like, what kind of a user is he accessing from the same sort of location where is he working from? Or is there a different behavior, right? He's like, as we see hacking, right? A user ID is being hacked, and probably he's not accessing from somewhere in India, but he's accessing from Africa. So those kind of a behavior patterns is what key from that zero trust architecture and build up around it. So I think network, then the access plays most of the two critical roles in building a zero trust framework for employees working from home.
Thanks, Harish. Any other questions?
BYOD as a facility is really emerging. So I just would like to know about, bigger organizations are not really promoting BYOD. Is it a smaller organization promoting BYOD, or?
I think things are changing. I'll defer to, of course, to Harish, because he's got a program around that. You're not wrong. The smaller, the more nimble organizations are always quicker to adapt to any new way of doing business. But with improvements in terms of how you can manage a registered device but not owned device, and how you can use the zero trust framework in terms of what data is accessible to that device. It's only a matter of time before you see this change. The larger organization will also start to adapt. I think in sidebar conversation, Harish said that in certain areas, in certain domains, the configuration of the device that the person has at home is probably superior to what we will be able to give them. So in many ways that could work. So yeah, I think things will change.
Amar, maybe in addition to Navneet here, in addition to your point, see, most of the organization, of course, if you see the 5 years before, it was flying like in the bigger way, right? The BYD, where most of the organizations started to have it. But if you have a privacy concerns, let us take you are accessing email, official email on your personal mobile. Definitely it monitors, there are a couple of controls it monitors in terms of your email movement. Like you cannot forward the email, you cannot download the email. At the same time, you cannot view it from the, other, any readers or something, right? So when we have started to have a control on personal device with the official, the controls, the people have a lot of hesitations. It looks like, see, Google monitor all this stuff, but, we don't bother, right? But we much bothered about this companies trying to do something on, our device. So that's why if you see this statistics wise, close to 67% of people, they came out of the BYD because the people mentally they felt organization is monitoring something on my device, irrespective of what are the control. So that's why just without control also it's very difficult to enforce in terms of what are the privileges what you're supposed to access in the office network, right? So
And it's
that's what
also
is, yeah, people are coming out from those aspects.
no, you're right. It also goes back to culture. So things need to evolve as policies mature, as frameworks mature, as organizations mature, cultures change and evolve. Employees also need to mature. We've got to start to be thinking in terms of looking at employers also being able to effectively participate in what the shared vision is for growth for the company that you work for. I think we have time for one last question before we wrap. I have a lady, someone's with the mic, and after that, a lady in the front. Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm Damodaran from Amix. So we keep getting calls from various companies which call the product as a productivity monitoring software or so, but it's actually more of a monitoring tool where the software is installed on the server and all the employees' activities are completely monitored, right? They say even without the employee consent, pretty much you install on the server and it automatically, they don't even know that it's happening. So in terms of both privacy and in terms of security, how is it like seeing in the industry happening that, adapting to the tools?
I mean, I just...
That's a tricky one, actually. He's got you on the spot.
No, I mean, I could relate back to it, like, being a technology, expert. I used to, when, I remember as a team lead, my employees used to come back to me saying, hey, why I'm being tracked, why I'm supposed to fill in the data, like what I did for next 2 hours and all. I mean, it all comes down to right set of productivity and getting the best out of workplace, right? And that's what I said earlier in my initial example, that as an employer, we got to think, sorry, as an employee, we got to think of the employer as well, right? And see what we are doing for it. The objectives have to be clear, that why we are, doing that privacy checks, or what we are like as you said, some sort of on similar lines, we used to track like, okay, hey, how many times do you spend in your meetings? Okay, how many time do you spend in resolving an incident? How much of time do you spend in a change or a problem management activity? It's all about basically, again, I gave an example of a services domain, but I think similar set of levels could be collected at any sort of industry to know that where exactly the employees are spending their time and energy, right? And then you could build your set of automation around it, or how do we get productivity around it? It's basically getting the best outcome from your employees. I think that's what we all are paid for, right? In any
I think best employees, best outcomes for our customers from our employees, but we also have a responsibility to deliver the best user experience to our employees. I think that's a work in progress. You can never hit it out, and this is what we're talking about right now is state of the art. So it will evolve, it will mature. I think we have time for one last question. The lady in the third row.
Hi. So my question is that, from Harish system or from Namit's system, it would be hardly any case that, the data security breach can happen, because they are so much aware about it. So the basic should be that the awareness should be created that, like your answer right now, that the person is asking you why it is happening. So the first thing to start with for security is that every person should be aware that what can lead to the breach, and also if you're doing certain things or you're applying in their PC something, you should kind of educate them why this is happening. So then the question and the breach will not happen, means the unintentional breach won't happen. So I feel that that
Absolutely.
is the most
And I could not have summed it up better, because that's exactly what it is. So just to play back a little bit, we've talked about the fact that the future is going to be connected, it's hyper-personalized, it's decentralized. Technology processes are evolving to take advantage of new ways of doing business. But two things need to happen. One is we cannot do things the old way and expect new results in a new paradigm and a new ecosystem. So I think that's very important for us to note. Policy frameworks need to change. They need to be able to adapt and evolve. And I think policies also need to be personalized to a certain degree. There cannot be a one-size-fits-all approach generally as far as anything is concerned. The second thing I think that's very, very important is employees and leadership need to get together and communicate like never before. You've got to be able to understand why we are in business, what our responsibilities are, what employees' responsibilities are. And I think if we have that dialogue going, we create that awareness, we create those channels of communication, that's when, for us in India as an industry, that's where the growth is going to come from. Because we all need to get together. This cannot be an us and them scenario. This has got to be us as an industry. Everyone is a part of it. We've all got a role to play. And if we do that, we can take the agenda forward for our clients safely with their data protected. Thank you very much for your time. A big thank you to Navaneethan and to Harish for spending time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Amar.